Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kirsten Cullenberg, Programs Manager at the World Affairs Council of Dallas-Fort Worth, and I run the Meridian Young Professionals program. Thank you all for joining this training. It has been quite a while since we had this group come together for the opportunity to learn such practical skills from a professional, and I am absolutely thrilled that we are all together this evening, even if it is still virtual. Now, that being said, we are quickly approaching the council's reopening to in-person programming. We actually resumed our in-office operations this week. You'll notice I'm no longer in my living room. I am at my desk. So stay tuned for details coming very soon on other young professionals social gatherings that we're planning and a young professionals fall service project. Now, for those of you who are maybe engaging with the World Affairs Council tonight for the first time, consider joining the council as a member. Memberships begin at $8 a month and include benefits like a free subscription to Foreign Policy magazine and invitations to exclusive events. For more information on all of this, visit our website at dfwworld.org or shoot me an email. And I'll drop my information in the chat box in just a moment. Our guest this evening is my good friend, Laura Frase. Laura serves as an assistant professor of law at the UNT Dallas College of Law, where she teaches courses like interviewing and counseling, negotiation and conflict resolution, with a focus on decision-making. She also directs the law school's advocacy program, including student competitions around the country. Laura earned her undergraduate degree from Rhodes College in Memphis, majoring in international relations, how appropriate for this crowd. And she went on to earn her master's on dispute resolution from SMU right here in Dallas and her JD from St. Mary's School of Law in San Antonio. Laura practiced law in Dallas for over 30 years before joining the College of Law, concentrating on insurance defense and mass tort trial litigation. She served as regional and national coordinating counsel for a number of clients and trained other attorneys across the country on strategies for the defense of those clients. In 1994, she was named Outstanding Young Lawyer by the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers. Laura is an almost lifetime resident of Dallas, is a sustaining member of the Junior League of Dallas, and speaks frequently to groups like ours on dispute resolution and negotiation. I know from personal experience that Laura can make one hell of a wine recommendation too. So you are all in for a treat tonight. Laura, I'm so thrilled you're joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kirsten. I am honored and thrilled to be here to talk with you all tonight. I do want to warn you a little bit, my internet connection is kind of being a little funky, so hang with me if I freeze up a little bit. Before we get started on the topic, I wanted to tell you all a little bit about UNT Dallas College of Law, if you all were not familiar with this school. This is a brand new law school here in Dallas. We opened in, I think, 2014, 2015 to our first class. The UNT Dallas School of Law is very different from other law schools. We pride ourselves in admitting and including diverse students, maybe students who have not always done as well in their grades or their GPA. And we also train our students to be outstanding lawyers. Once they get their bar exam, they can hit the ground running. So we do a lot of experiential, practical skills training like negotiation and interviewing that Kirsten talked about. 56% of our students are female, 54% of our students are individuals of color, and over 11% are current or former members of the military. So what is also unique about our school is that we have a part-time program, and there's no other school in Texas that has a part-time program. So those of you all that are working and interested in law school, come take a look at us. What we're going to talk about today is negotiation. So first of all, another warning, sometimes I do have a cat that likes to Zoom bomb. So this is one of the strategies to think of when you're getting ready to prepare for a meeting. All right, so negotiation. You all, I know, are familiar with international negotiations, trade negotiations, diplomatic negotiations. I think sometimes it's hard to recognize that we negotiate all the time in our lives. Any of you all that have driven in the last few days, you have engaged in a negotiation. You got on the streets, You followed the same rules that everyone else was following. If you switched lanes, hopefully, you put on your signal to tell the other person you're getting ready to change lanes, and that person hopefully slowed down and you moved into your next lane. By everyone knowing the same rules, then everyone does the same dance. And that's what negotiations is. It is a dance. It has a rhythm. It has steps. It has a process that you go through. And it's important when you're thinking about negotiation that you think about, is this an opportunity? Is this an opportunity for me to negotiate? For example, you can negotiate, if you don't already know this, the interest rate on your credit cards. Anything you buy, even if you go to a brick and mortar store, you might be able to negotiate a lower price. Maybe you negotiate a lower price by asking someone to throw something else in. It's not all formal negotiations. It happens to us every day. Any of you all that have gotten a job, you all have negotiated salaries. Any of you all that have hired anyone, you have negotiated. Anytime you and your family members sat down to figure out where you were going to go on vacation, where you were going to go for dinner, you participated in a negotiation. So one of the first strategies to think about is do I have an opportunity to negotiate what I want? And when you think about negotiation, you also need to think about, and this is particularly, I think, of y'all's interest, that there are cultural differences. Just as there's cultural differences in dance, there are cultural differences in the way we negotiate. I won't go into those. My goal is to not put together in an hour what I teach my students over 3 credit hours. So I will be brief, but just a reminder that we shouldn't use the stereotypical things that we think is appropriate in negotiation. For example, you don't need to bow to every person from Asian culture. Asian culture is incredibly diverse. So think about the cultural aspects of what you're getting ready to negotiate. Another example, perhaps you're dealing with a culture that really celebrates hierarchy and order. In that situation, you may need to consider whether you need to be deferential in the manner in which you negotiate. So first, look for opportunities to negotiate. Next is the rule of 4 Ps and the plan B. Now this rule of 4 Ps is a version of Frank Branson's admonition. I don't know if you all are familiar with Frank Branson. He is one of the top plaintiff lawyers, not only in Dallas, not only in Texas, but in the country. And his original rule was 6 Ps, but there's 2 words that I'm not going to use. So the rule is, poor preparation guarantees poor performance. Poor preparation guarantees poor performance. So before you engage in a negotiation, you need to actually sit down and prepare. Think about what's the most you're willing to pay for something, or maybe the least you're willing to sell something for. Think about what other resources you have that you can bring to the table. For example, you all have an outstanding reputation in the community with this organization. So if you're negotiating on behalf of this organization, your reputation may be an asset that you can negotiate with. You're going to negotiate with a vendor. You can say, vendor, you can put our name on your website, or you can brag about the fact that you're doing business with us. That costs you nothing, but it's a very valuable resource you bring to the table. So think about why you're negotiating. And as also part of the rule of 4 Ps, you need to have a plan B or an alternate plan. The idea is, if I can't do a deal, how am I going to get what I want from someone else? So if I am negotiating with Kirsten and she and I can't come to an understanding or an agreement, where else can I go to get what I want? In negotiation terms, this is called a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. It's nothing more than a plan B. If you don't have a plan B, if you don't have an alternative on how to accomplish what you want to accomplish, you are not a deal maker, you are a deal taker. By planning and having an alternate plan, you have the ability to get up and leave the negotiation. And that ability is a tremendous amount of leverage. You've got to give yourself a way to be able to get up and walk away. Think of this: if you're getting ready to buy a car, you may want to go to a particular dealer and you want to get a particular car. Your plan B would be going to another dealer and seeing if they've got the same car. And in fact, part of the fun is if you can negotiate with car dealership 1 and negotiate with car dealership number 2 and see who gets you the best price. Always have a plan B, always. All right, so this idea, I want everyone to think this out loud, or you're even welcome to say it out loud. I've got 2 questions I want you to answer. First question: what color is this piece of paper? Okay. What do cows drink? Now, I won't ask you to admit this, but how many of you all thought milk? No, cows don't drink milk, cows drink water. Why is it that when someone holds up a white piece of paper and asks you what do cows drink, you instantly think of milk? Well, it makes perfect sense. It's a shortcut that your brain takes. Now, my law students justify this like gangbusters once they figured out what I've pulled on them by saying, oh, well, calves drink milk. Anyway, the idea of whiteout is to slow down your thinking, slow down your reactions. Give yourself time to contemplate what you've heard from the other side. Give yourself time to think about the offer the other side has made. Give yourself time to think about what offer you want to make. 9 times out of 10, there's no deadline. Going back to the idea of negotiating being a dance, the dance can get kind of frenzied. It can get almost a little out of control. And when that happens, the beauty of the dance can be diminished. It's the same with a negotiation. It can get frenzied. You can get really involved in the process and the rhythm. And sometimes you need to just slow it down, slow down your thinking, and slow down your reactions. So that's the idea of whiteout. The next idea, here, and I'll move this little chat box so you all can see it. The idea of being hard on the problem and soft on the people. This is the core concept that comes out of the book, Getting to Yes, from Roger Fisher and William Ury. Some of you may have read this if you took negotiation in undergraduate or any of your graduate programs. This book is from the 1970s, and it turned the concept of negotiation on its head. Now, yeah, 1970s. It's a little on the old side. The authors use the Cuban Missile Crisis as examples in their negotiation strategies, and for some of you all, that is ancient history. I get it. There's still no book better that explains how to approach negotiation with working with people and still getting everything you want. So the idea here, being hard on the problem, means that we should be strategic and intentioned in the terms we propose and the terms that we want. And we don't concede anything to try and make the other person like us. Anything we concede, anything we give up, we do so for a reason, likely to get something in return. And while we're being hard and strategic and sticking to our plan during the negotiation, we can still be cordial and respectful with our opponent. You all have seen what's happened in the national conversations, how quickly discussions degenerate into name calling. And what does that accomplish? Absolutely nothing. In fact, it makes it harder to manage conflict or to engage in a negotiation. Study after study after study has also demonstrated that people that use positive language, positive terms in a negotiation get better deals. For example, here's what you will get if you do a deal with me, as opposed to, if you don't do a deal with me, I'm going to bury you in paper, or whatever some lawyers think, some other lawyers think. So the idea here, stick to your guns, stick to your plan, concede terms, concede numbers, whatever, for a strategic reason, and still be cordial to the other side. This is about building rapport. You want the other side to like you. You want the other side to trust you. You want the other side to find you credible. You all know you want to do business with people you like. That's a very, very strong way to persuade people, to get them to like you. You just have to be careful that you are not being manipulated, that the other side is not giving you a compliment, saying kind things about you in order to manipulate you to like them and therefore concede. This is a core skill that car dealers use. First 3 words out of their mouths are going to be something nice about you. Oh, you're really smart, or gosh, you're a really good negotiator. They're saying that to let you get your guard down. Don't do it. Stay hard on the problem. All right, next strategy. This is one of my favorites. The acronym of WAIT. And that stands for, why am I talking? Why am I talking? A question to ask yourself. Silence is incredibly powerful in a negotiation. Think about the typical conversations that you have. You have broken out of the house finally, and you've just gotten back, for example, from a vacation in San Diego, and you're getting ready to have dinner with your best friend. And she just got back from a trip to New York, and you all can't wait to get together and catch up. And what happens during that conversation? She tells you about this wonderful restaurant that she went into in New York. And you respond with this wonderful restaurant that you went to in San Diego. And then she tells you she got to see this terrific historical site and how much she loved it and what it was all about. How do you respond? You respond by describing the wonderful historical sites that you saw in San Diego. That's not a conversation. That's a ping pong match. That's a, I have something better than you do, or did something better than you did subconsciously. That's a lot of the way we have conversations nowadays. Instead, try silence. And I give this exercise to my students. Have a conversation with someone where you don't say anything. Maybe ask them a question at the beginning. How was your trip to New York? And let them tell you all about it. Maybe you say things like, oh, or wow, or Those kinds of words keep the conversation going. And you will be amazed how wonderful that conversation is going to be. Your friend may even tell you that's one of the best conversations you all have ever had, and you've not said a word. Silence is incredibly powerful. And in negotiation, there are 2 times to be silent. 2 times. One when you receive an offer, and one when you make a demand. So, you receive an offer from your opponent. Just be silent. Think about Whiteout. You want to give yourself a chance to think about what they said. Give your chance to slow down your thinking and slow down your reactions. just to be quiet and think about it. What really might happen is in your silence, your opponent's going to get a little nervous. And they might even bid against themselves, which is great fun. Great fun. So be silent when you receive an offer. When you make a demand, say what you want and then be quiet. It's so tempting to make a demand and then explain where you came up with your numbers, why you are making the demand you are making, the background of why you are proceeding the way you're proceeding. Don't do it. There's no reason to share that information. Because when you do, when you share this additional information or you talk after you've given your demand, you might accidentally bid against yourself. You might accidentally share information when it wasn't strategic to do so. The other advantage of silence is it causes you to listen. Tensioned in your listening, you will be amazed what you learn and what the other side volunteers. Typically information you can use to get a better deal. So think, why am I talking? All right. And then finally, I'm glad you asked that. This is the idea of curiosity and questions. Any of you all who have been around toddlers, they have an annoying number of questions, don't they? Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Look, what's in the dirt? What is all of these bugs? What are they called? We start losing our curiosity about the ages of 5 and 6. How depressing is that? We get curious about specific things rather than having general curiosity. And as a consequence, we ask less questions. As part of your planning with a negotiation, be prepared to ask questions. The other side is there for a reason. They want to do a deal with you. If they didn't, they wouldn't be here. So in your planning, you're thinking about why you're there. And now you want to find out why they are there. So you ask questions like, can you make that deal better? What else can you do for me? Very powerful question. Tell me why you want to do whatever. Now, for example, you might go to a car dealership and they'll say, well, I want to sell you a car. That's why I'm here. Then maybe ask, why do you want to sell a car today? And they may talk about, well, I want to sell a car today because you look like you could really use a car. And I know you can get a really good deal here. That's why they want to sell. That's why they think you need to buy a car. You want to find out why they need to sell the car that day, if you can. Maybe their numbers are down. Maybe they've got a whole bunch of inventory coming in. Maybe they haven't sold anything in a few days and it's getting to be the end of the month. Ask questions. One of the best questions you can ask doesn't even have a question mark. The sentence is, tell me more about that. If you don't engage in a conversation without those words ready to go in your back pocket, you are missing things. Anytime someone is telling you about the way they feel, about their values, their process, their intention, you will find out so much more by just saying, tell me more about that. Or why is that important to you? What's the process that you're thinking of? Now, these have got to be I'm not coming up with the right word, but where you're not being sarcastic about your questions, you're not being demeaning, and you're not engaging in gotcha. You've got to ask these questions with pure curiosity if you can. Tell me more about that. There is this negotiation story about two sisters. and they had one orange between them. One sister, both sisters needed the entire orange, but there was only one. Normally in negotiation, what would happen? You'd split the orange in half, and each sister would get a half of an orange. But a half of an orange doesn't do it for them. They need more. They need the entire orange. Only by sitting down and finding out why each sister wants that orange can they solve the problem. One sister needs the orange peel in order to bake a cake. The other sister needs the innards of the orange in order to make orange juice. If they take the time to ask the questions, the why, what are the interests? That's the term a lot of negotiators use. What are your interests? Finding out the interests behind the whys, why you need that orange. By understanding that, they had a perfect solution. One got all the innards, one got all the peel. They both got what they wanted, merely by asking questions. So here's the conclusion of my little presentation. Do the negotiation dance. Now, those of you all that like 80s music, safety dance comes in my head every time I say this. So do your negotiation dance. Plan, and then plan some more, and make sure you've got that plan B. My mother, God love her, she wants to have written on her tombstone, she neglected to have a plan B. All right? That should tell you something about my sick and twisted family, but always have a plan B. Slow down your thinking. Don't let that white piece of paper make you think milk immediately. Slow down your thinking, slow down your reactions. Be intentioned and strategic in your moves. If you've done your planning, you know where you want to start. You know where it is that you will get up and walk away from the deal. And you know what moves you're going to make as you negotiate. What concessions you're going to make, what concessions or terms you're not willing to concede. Have your plan be intentioned and strategic, still building rapport, trust, credibility. Use the power of silence. Why am I talking? Silence when you get the offer, silence when you make the demand. And then finally, ask questions. Ask questions from a place of curiosity. You're going to do your plan. You're going to have holes. There's going to be information you don't know. That's a great place to start on what kind of questions to ask. If you're still struggling with what kind of questions to ask, think about what you learned in writing or journalism class. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. And remember the question that doesn't have a question mark. Tell me more about that. If you all practice those skills, I think you will also find your conversations with your friends and your family are going to get better by using a lot of these skills, particularly slowing down your thinking, asking questions, and using silence. And then most importantly, be yourself, because everybody else is taken. I have here, and this PowerPoint will be shared. This is a list of books that I suggest to my students and would suggest to you all if you're interested in learning more about negotiation. I've included the Getting to Yes book by Roger Fisher and William Ury. Those of you that are more interested in international negotiations or more conflict management theory, these last two books by Bernie Mayer are tremendous along those lines. A lot of these strategies that we talked about are also strategies to de-escalate conflict, as I'm sure you can now see by thinking about those. The book on power questions I find particularly helpful for those of you who are new into business. This book is all about different kinds of questions. And at the end of the book, there are 230 some odd questions the author lists, and he categorizes them by marketing, self-promotion, various different kinds of questions to ask depending on the environment you're in. For example, one question that they suggest is if you're getting interviewed and the people that have seen your resume, they sit down and they look you straight in the eye and they say, so tell me about yourself. Okay, dreaded question, right? Horrible question. An opportunity for you to open your mouth and just let stream of consciousness stuff dribble out. Don't do it. The authors suggest ask the question, I know you have my resume. What would you like to know about me? Think what information you get when you get the answer to that question. You know exactly what portion of your skills and your resume they're interested in, because they'll tell you, oh, I want to learn more about what you learned in school, or I'd like to know more about your responsibilities in your previous job. How much time does that save? And you're focusing and getting to them the information they need to hire you. You're learning a ton about them because you're learning about their priorities. Just that simple question. What would you like to know? What area of my background are you curious about? So that's a really good book with the questions at the end. I go back to it all the time when I find myself in various situations.
And Laura, you said that was the Power Questions by
Power Questions, Build Relationships by Sobel and Panis. And these are all fairly easy reads, I promise. No, probably the Lee Thompson, Mind and Heart of a Negotiator, that's for you MBAs. That's a little more complex in depth. The Negotiation Genius by Chris Voss. Chris Voss was a hostage negotiator. And so he's got a lot of different perspectives on how to approach negotiation. All of these books are easy reads. All of them have some terrific examples. I would not dare ask you all to read anything that remotely talked about the law. So I bore my students already. I don't want to bore you all as well.
All right. Well, Laura, thank you so much for your time tonight. And thank you all for joining us. I hope that you got some things out of this to carry into your daily lives. A quick kind of recap of some of the things I mentioned at the top of the program. If you are not a member of the World Affairs Council, maybe you know, we've all been virtual this last year. Maybe you don't live in Dallas. That's perfectly fine. You can become a member for as little as $8 a month. We're continuing to do our virtual programming as we start opening up in person. But again, like I said, we are opening up in person very soon. So stay tuned for those announcements. I'm planning a young professionals service project this fall, as well as some social gatherings and more trainings like this. So stay engaged with us. I dropped my email in the chat at the start. If you have any questions, reach out. A quick reminder about that council survey I mentioned at the top. We'd love to get your feedback and some ideas that you have. So it should take you 10 minutes tops to do. At least a portion of tonight's conversation, so Laura's presentation at the start for sure, will be on our YouTube page, as well as all of our programming over the last, how many months, 15, 16 months. All of the council's programs are on our YouTube channel, which is dfwworld. So head there to catch up on what we've been doing, as well as to see a recap of tonight that'll be posted in a few days. As Laura mentioned, I will send out this the PowerPoint that we discussed tonight. But again, thank you all for joining us. Laura, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful evening. Bye, y'all.